And first, I want to introduce Steve Weber. Steve is from Blink Signs, the head of national sales for Blink in the self-storage division. Over 5 years, he's worked very hard to assist a variety of different self-storage clients. We have Brandon.maurer from BETCO. Good to see you, Brandon. Brandon is a sales representative from BETCO, serving customers in Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, Kentucky, and West Virginia. We have merrill.prazenka from Motili. I think relatively new to Motili in the last year and working on some great sales from Motili. I'm excited to share what great things that Motili is doing. We've used them a lot in our own business as well. And then last but not least, Scott Salzeider. Scott, who I've known for many years and probably, worked on 60, 70 different storage facilities in various capacities and built them together with Scott. And Scott has had his own company, Salzeider Inc., for over 15 years. And Scott, how many storage properties you worked on? Probably over 200 over the years. I mean, that's just a boatload of them.
Yeah, we've done a few million square feet. So either constructing or renovating, converting. So it's been a good industry for us.
Awesome. So we're going to get in some good questions for you then. You all will be a wealth of knowledge. So thank you all for participating. So let's kind of start with the positive. Obviously, it's got to be a market where you guys are just bidding like absolutely crazy. I mean, it's got to be more projects going on now than probably more than you've seen. I mean, why don't we start with you, Brandon? I mean, is this velocity the most you've seen in your career?
Absolutely. We normally do 300 to 350 projects per year. We're gonna surpass that, and going to be in the 500s this year. Just incredible growth we've seen over the past 12 months.
Scott, you got to be seeing the same thing, Scott. I mean, what are the types of projects? I guess we'll start with Brandon, then go to Scott. What types of projects are you bidding on more? Are they more of the traditional drive up, or have they been more of the climate, multi-story climate control?
Yeah, we've really seen a mix of both. But in the last 12 months, we've seen a surge of multi-story projects as developers develop more in the major markets. They're going vertical, so we've seen a lot of multi-story projects. Still doing the smaller single-story climate control and non-climate control, but we've definitely seen a surge of multi-story in the last 12 months.
Yeah, I would agree. We're seeing for sure, Class A climate controlled multi-story. Depending on the site, there could be room for some drive up as well, or possibly creating, some drive up on the first floor, depending on the site circulation. But whether those are, ground up pad ready sites or, particular building owners that we might have had maybe doing office or some other work that they have a building that they want to convert. So it's really, it kind of runs the gamut of conversion, ground up, expansion.
Yeah.
But right now, I would say obviously the Northeast is plenty busy, and Brandon, you probably are a little bit more have a larger footprint than we do, which is mostly Detroit area, Northeast, Chicago. But I mean, people are looking for sites, and it's been strong.
Great. And Merrill, you're still on mute, just so you know. Okay, great. So Merrill, talk a little bit about the velocity you guys are seeing. You got to be bidding on storage projects through all kinds of contractors, through direct deals. I mean, where are you seeing? Are you obviously you're bidding a lot more on the multi-story, is my guess.
Yeah, so we're seeing a lot of activity, and our verticals are pretty diverse. We're somewhat new to the self-storage side and our relationship with SBOA as it grows. But we are seeing a lot of replacement as well as development. Like both Scott and Brandon mentioned, a lot in the Northeast as well as in the Southeast. So lots of activity, lots of bidding, and lots of things coming up out of the ground. And
Steve, how about you? So, I mean, we've worked with you in the past. You guys have great quality, great service. Talk a little bit about, are you guys even? I mean, you must be seeing just incredible amount of work coming across your desk.
Yeah. So, I mean, for the last 12 to 16 months, it's just been of all of our industries, self-storage has by far been the most consistent, and it just keeps going and going. Like everyone else, the Northeast has been hot for us and continues to be. Obviously, the Southeast and Florida market's great, but we're seeing it in the Midwest. So I'm here in Chicago remotely, and things are booming here, Indiana. So it's been a great thing for us, whether it be new builds, a lot of acquisitions of existing, and we're helping do things like banners and get rebranding done temporary, and then obviously the permanent. So it's been very exciting for us, and it just continues to go, which obviously I'm not going to complain about. It's been great.
Yeah, I didn't really think about that. The
Yeah, a lot of
raise the acquisition pace has to be really good for your business.
yes,
A lot of
yes,
changeover of signage.
absolutely.
So tell me, so Brandon, are you seeing a lot of, I'm sorry, Steve, are you seeing a lot of new clients? Are you doing a lot of repeat business? What are you seeing? I mean, you're probably one
Well,
of the, you see everything.
yeah, fortunately, I've been seeing a lot of both. It's not just been existing, but we've really brought on in the last 6 months some really new clientele. Um, Events like this and introducing myself have been really helpful with that, and just being ingrained in the industry. So it's been both. So I cannot complain.
And how about you, Brandon? I mean, you've got to be seeing a lot of new people coming into the space.
Yeah, we are. We're seeing a lot of new players in the market, and that's a good sign. But again, our existing relationships, our existing developers continue to expand their business, and they're growing. We're growing with them, and it's been impressive to watch.
Yeah. And Scott, I mean, you're just, I mean, I'm sure referrals for you now and just getting good people. I mean, it's got to be, you're bidding all over the country, right?
Yes, we've been, the Northeast has been busy for bidding. Michigan and the Midwest has been steady. That's probably where we have the most, connections for repeat customers, and also, in Chicago.
Great.
Um,
So so obviously, start talking about some of the challenging components of the business now. So pricing, with everything going on in supply chain. So, Merrill, with you, I mean, how much how much are you seeing a change in what you're able to deliver on pricing, and how's that impacting your business?
Yeah, so just a little background on Motili. We were actually owned by the largest manufacturer of HVAC equipment. So we have a very fortunate position that we can leverage our nationwide distribution network, not only the company owned, but also our independent network. And one of the ways that we've helped kind of combat the supply chain issues for our clients is if we don't have a piece of equipment locally, we can look across the country and see it and bring it into that facility as needed. From the pricing standpoint, it's the same challenges that most manufacturers are having these days. Cost of goods are going up, labor's going up. The supply demand, correct, right? So we've had some price increases. We have held off on many, but we do have some changing circumstances in our industry that are coming down the pipeline for 2023 that we have to keep our eye on as well.
Yeah, there's no question. I mean, I got to believe, like Brandon, it's got to be harder and harder. I mean, with just the incredible development, for example, and everything you guys are doing. I mean, you're gonna have to prioritize which deals you want to get done, right? You're probably having to go to a lot of your loyal customers first. I mean, talk a little bit about what you're doing and how deals that you bid a while ago. How are you able to keep? Are you able to keep some of the pricing? Are you having an increase? Tell us about what's going on. It can't be easy.
Yeah, no, it's not easy. It's been a struggle, but we've made it this far. Of course, it really started back in October of last year. As steel mills got caught up into the first wave of the pandemic, and they're continuing to continue to see that demand there with orders continuing to outpace that demand. It's really been a prioritization of our loyal customers, of our long-term relationships, but also our new developers, and really balancing that line between the two.
Yeah. And Steve, how about you? I mean, are you kind of having to balance kind of who you decide you're going to want to fill orders on? I mean, I was just getting installations done has to be incredibly challenging.
So yes, from the material end, we're having, just trying to leverage that is a challenge, no doubt about it, and doing things like bulk orders and stuff like that has helped with pricing. But yeah, and also you talk on the service end of getting our installers all on the same page. There has been some challenges there with just crews that are either shrinking due to labor, and they don't have the time to really get out there for what we see, usually an additional 2 to 3 weeks. So what we're really trying to do is on our end, okay, these things are here. How do we update our process when it comes to communicating with not only the client, but also our partners, and automating more so we can work in some ways to scale back our part of the process to meet these timelines for the customers. So it's a work in progress. We keep refining it every single day, but it's a good thing for us in the sense that it's making us be more efficient and try to find new creative ways to scale back those timelines to meet our customers' needs. So that's really one positive of the whole situation, I would say.
Yeah. So Scott, you're really seeing the whole gamut, right? You're seeing from everybody's perspective, and you're seeing, obviously you're overseeing the entire project. So where are you seeing some of the biggest challenges? Where are you seeing with the labor? I mean, talk a little bit about kind of what you're seeing and how amazingly you've been successful at getting things done and still staying as tight to budget as humanly possible. Tell us a bit about your key success, where you see the biggest challenges, how you overcome them.
Yeah, well, over the last year and a half, there's just, the simple fact is there's just been challenges, and some have overcome and some not. But from the time we start a project going into the city until the time you get permits, 6 months later, there has been such a drastic price increase, mostly related to the storage systems and the metal building component. Those are probably the two main drivers on the storage systems, and some of those have resulted in projects that just no longer were within budget, and some of the projects could absorb it. But getting that team of architect and civil engineer that has storage experience, getting them on board early, getting your metal building preliminarily, bid out so you can pick a company early on and coordinate those drawings with the architectural drawings. That helps you be able to start as soon as you do get your approvals. But there's no doubt that, I mean, the supply chain and the volatility of steel over the last year and a half has for sure been the biggest challenge. Being able to hold those prices for longer than 30 days has been a challenge.
So when you're now bidding projects, what are you encouraging your customers to do as far as contingency? Are you asking them to, what's been your general contingency historically, and what are you seeing? What are you kind of asking people to kind of plan for, just to be conservative and be
Yeah,
prepared?
well, we generally can save a lot of pain by giving, before, even a pre-designed budget. With our experience, we can generally look at their site, even if they have a general footprint. Our consultants will be glad to put something on paper for building envelopes and preliminary site layout, and we can probably get a budget together based on that. Using square foot numbers, we can get some pricing on, at least some budgetary pricing on the building and on the storage systems and all the other components. And if it kind of makes sense, and we'll just, what you're saying there, Ian, is correct. You're just going to put a larger contingency during times of volatility, and you really start there with. And if that preliminary budget makes it all kind of sense, and the feasibility study is available, and it's a good site, we'll take it to the next step. But really trying to get a general idea for the site, uh, uh, unit mix layout, and preliminary budget, before the owner has to go spend, tens of thousands of dollars. That, I think, is where we add value.
And so generally, what do you have people double their, I mean, you don't want to get caught with the lender too. You don't want to all of a sudden have to write another couple $1 million check, right? So on a large project. So are you doubling contingencies generally, or don't really, it's hard to give a good
Well,
answer.
it depends because, right now we're talking about steel and, material costs, but there are other things. I mean, there are other things that come up during the development process. Like if you have a site that's a use by right, and it won't require you to, upgrade to some stormwater requirement. You could find out during development that there's all kinds of things that you need to bring up to current requirements. Whereas on a conversion, for instance, you might skirt that and be able to go in with existing zoning, just with a simple change of use, and the site development costs are minimized. So it's, right now we're talking so much about material, but there are many other things to consider early on that
Yeah.
would make you say, hey, what kind of contingency do we need to put on this project?
I mean, labor, Brandon, I got to imagine labor. I historically, I've always found, with the building crews, it's not always easy to get those things fully staffed. What do you, tell me about some of the labor challenges you're having? Just to pay a lot more on labor and passing those costs on. What's been kind of your solution?
Yeah, we've had some good success with labor. BETCO has its own crews that are BETCO employees that travel the nation putting up our buildings, and we've had good success with retaining those employees. Labor costs are going up, and unfortunately, sometimes that does get passed on to the customer. But as far as what we're seeing from a staffing perspective, we've had fairly good luck as far as it goes with our crews.
Good. So one of the things that I've found to be very helpful, going back to Merrill here for a second. So I think getting, while the engineers, and architects are doing a good job of designing the projects, I feel like you guys have a lot of value add in some of the things you guys do. Talk a little bit about how involved you get, when you get involved, and also one of the things you guys have teamed up with people that help you kind of analyze and monitor your systems. First, let's talk a little bit about how early you get involved, and are you changing? I'm sure it's preferable for you to be involved early so you can take a look at the drawings and maybe make a few suggestions.
Yeah, the earlier the better. We are a full service manufacturer where we can do design build work. We have engineers on staff. We can also work through our applied network for specialized equipment. So we have a lot of depth into the services that we can offer, and not all the services are needed in every project. So the earlier the better, so that we can establish how we're going to best work together on the project. Then we can look at the specific needs of the project. Is it climate controlled, or is it just temperature controlled? Do we have to have remote monitoring? Is there an energy management system that needs to be integrated across this platform into an existing platform? So we have the ability to bring in our experts to help consult with the existing contractor on site, to the existing engineer, or if they are in need of engineering services, we can offer that as well.
Yeah, I'll share a personal story, business story, is that, we owned a property in Massachusetts. There was 13 different HVAC units, a bunch of different buildings, climate control. Motili, you guys came in, you brought in your consultant, quickly figured out that we had 4 or 5 HVAC units that were out, which then was creating massive bills that we didn't know because they were all working overtime. And you guys came in and actually, the management company bid out with 2 other providers. You guys were about 30% less expensive and got it done immediately. And talk a bit about what you're able to do on a consultative basis when you're coming in like an existing project and trying to assess the problem. Talk a little bit about that, and similar to what we just had, a great experience we had.
Yeah, so if we come in on an existing project, and very similar to kind of what Scott had mentioned, if we can just take the existing envelope with the existing equipment, we can come in and do what we call an asset tag, where we take in all of the information, look at the asset, the condition it's in, make recommendations as to, it's completely dead, it needs to be replaced, or it still has X amount of years of life in it. And that way you maximize your spend on areas where you need to. That in conjunction with the fact that we are the manufacturer, we can take our systems and pair them with the existing systems to ensure that your efficiency is appropriate, your building management system is integrated with all of the systems on site, and then continually monitor that for you or give you software so you can monitor it yourself. So we really truly are from start to finish, design, maintain, replace, retrofit. We can do it all.
Great. Switching over now back to Steve. Talk a little bit about. I'm just curious. We've had some great experiences with you guys as well. Talk a little bit about how early you guys get involved in the process, and I know you guys are usually pretty helpful in working with the municipalities as well to get approvals, right? Maximizing layout and the look. Talk a little bit about what you guys do there.
Yeah. So some of the time, unfortunately, we're kind of, usually one of the last people to be on site putting up signage. So it unfortunately can be an afterthought sometimes, where it's like, hey, Steve, we have a location. We're going to open in 30 to 45 days. And we need signage. I'm like, okay, we'll see what we can do. But permitting's taking 30 to 45 days in itself. So in a long-winded answer, the sooner the better. Essentially, as long as you have elevation drawings created for us, we can really start doing our own due diligence on our end as far as evaluating the lot, making sure that we're putting signage in areas that it is viewable from the main roads or the main points that need to be viewed. Also, obviously, talking with the municipality or the county or whatever and deciding how much signage we can put, talking with the contractor as far as flagging for any freestanding signs, and as well as like what type of power needs to be run to the areas on the building. So the sooner the better, just because with permitting, we can get that going. And at the end of the day,
you're usually filing the permits, right?
Yes. So we
also
file permits, everything.
In one case with us too, you actually, a lot of times you're obviously going to the city and arguing for a larger sign.
So we have to do that. Engineering is, for instance, in a lot of our projects in Florida, there's always required engineering for that. So we'll get that taken care of and take care of permitting and work with the contractor on site to make sure everything's set up for when the signage is there. So the sooner the better.
Yeah, Scott, getting back to you now. So let's talk about the biggest pain points right now in the construction biz. I know there's quite a few of them. It's never easy. But what do you see as like the biggest mistakes people are making that when you see, you just like drives you crazy and you wish that they had consulted with you ahead of time, or wish that you were the one running that project and it's not one of yours? Because I don't think you've ever made a mistake, have you?
Oh yeah, no, we make mistakes, but I think everybody has touched on this. Sometimes we do get involved in a project, and maybe all the consultants are chosen, or there's been some commitments made, some cost items commitments made, maybe a little too early, or some consultants that were chosen might not be a good fit for the project. So, if we, I think where we add some value there too is, to be involved in selecting the architect and engineer and the metal building companies, the main components for storage. So certainly having a good team with storage experience is helpful and can eliminate a lot of that pain. Depending where you're developing, I mean, the Northeast is a bear to get approvals, but it's you get good rents. So I mean, I think that will always be the case. That municipality, just depending on the municipality, if it's a use by right, that's great. If it's a special permit or a conditional rezoning agreement, there sometimes are requirements in there that can affect cost. And then the one thing those have kind of always been pain points for storage or development projects. And then, more recently is just the volatility in pricing. And we're really looking forward to, I think things are have leveled, and maybe we're looking for some of those prices to start going down after the first of the year, going into next spring starts. That's kind of to be determined. We don't know that for sure, but it sure has been nothing but spikes up for the last year or so. So,
Scott, really what you're saying is clearly you want to be basically a helpful partner with your client. I mean, you want to look at the whole thing holistically. You want to say, here's where we can re-engineer this thing to make it best. Here's the things you want to think about, and really allow them, prevent them from making loans.
Well, we will sometimes get a project, and they will just, people will be, they might be a retail developer or an office developer, and they're just going to do this, storage project, and they have the architect, that did their other product type, start laying out, for storage, and that's, that it just is not necessarily, the right decision. So there's just standards. If you were, if one of the big, if you have CubeSmart or Extra Space, it would, you would already have your storage standards in there. There's a lot of developers that, don't have that kind of track record developing, and there are just storage standards that, early on with the unit mix, the drive-through bay clearances, door heights, HVAC design, lighting standards, faux doors, signage. There's just a lot that can be tackled early on that
Yep.
if you don't have an experienced architect at the beginning, you'll make a little progress, and then you'll be going backwards. So,
yeah, no, totally get it. I was thinking now back to Merrill. So like what? Again, same thing. I mean, you want to probably get involved early in the process. You want to talk a little bit about how the industry changes are impacting what you're doing, and where you kind of can be a little more helpful as well.
Yeah, so one of the things that's coming down the pipeline for HVAC in 2023 is an efficiency change. Not uncommon in our industry. The difference between this one and the last one that happened about 10 to 15 years ago, the last one was a phase out. This one is a line in the sand. So as we are launching into new projects that might have a timeline of a year to a year and a half, because we won't be able to install those systems prior to that 2023 January 1st date, we have to anticipate the engineering changes and the price increases that come with that. So when you're in the middle of an equipment change, a redesign, an efficiency redesign, you have a client that wanted a high efficiency unit, but because of the standards changing, we have to be very flexible and really reach into the depth of our engineering to ensure that what we're designing for is what we'll actually be able to deliver when we actually put it out on site. So there's I don't want to call it a crystal ball, but there is a lot of looking towards the future, selling to the future rather than just using what we have on hand today, which makes it a little bit more complicated. It also adds some additional cost to the project as costs rise. When you get a more efficient HVAC system, the coils get bigger, the cabinets get bigger, which means you're using more steel and aluminum, which means the costs go up. So we kind of have to balance all of those factors to be a good partner with not only our GCs, but also our end users, so that they're getting the performance that they expect out of their building, that we're within budget, and it meets or exceeds all of the expectations that they set back when they started the project.
Yep. Great. So, I have a little echo there. So why don't we go back to Brandon there then and ask, what are the most important factors that people should look at when they're deciding with which building manufacturer to go with?
Yeah, no, it's deciding on a building provider is going to be really one of the most important steps that you make in building a self-storage facility. Obviously, you'll be judged by how the buildings look, and that could make the difference between winning or losing your tenant. My first recommendation would be to find a building provider that manufactures your buildings. There's hundreds of building providers out there that piecemeal or prefabricate or pull buildings off the shelf. The manufacturers give you the ability to go straight to the source, but also gives you the option to really customize your building the way that you want it. You're not conforming to what your building provider has available, but you're having your manufacturer conform to what you would rather, what you would like in a building. Um, I would also recommend using a manufacturer that has an in-house engineering. Part of that process that we talk about will be those engineer drawings, and when a third party gets involved, delays can happen. So uh, relying on a building provider that has that in-house engineering is important. And also, I would recommend finding a builder that erects their buildings as well. Uh, and really ask a lot of questions. What are the lead times? What is the scope of work for the building provider? What's the pricing structure? What about warranties? These are things that you know you can ask up front to prevent any surprises when you get further down the process.
Great. And so, do you generally? Let me ask you a question. So, a lot of deals will come to you. Obviously, if you're gonna bid on them, Brandon, you want to bid on the actual scope. But would you say most of the time you end up re-engineering after the fact, usually to the benefit of, obviously, to the benefit of the client? But do you find that that's a very common experience? Like once the thing is designed, you can then help change the unit mix a bit, or when a guy like Scott gets out there, he's going to, come up with some other ideas with the customer.
Yeah, no, we rely on our customers, building team to we rely on them and we work with them on unit mix changes or whatever changes they may have. We're very flexible, and it makes a real difference to have a flexible building provider that can can work with your team of architects and civil engineers and GC to make sure that you're getting what you want out of the building that you've selected.
Got it. So Scott, when you're building around the country, talk to me a bit about, like, obviously when you're in your home state, you kind of have your favorite sons a bit and daughters about who you want to work with. Talk a bit about how you get out there and get to know some of the people and meet great people like you see here on this call.
Yeah, well, in self storage, I think most people realize that the metal building companies and the storage systems, meaning the corridors and the roll up doors, um, you know, uh, regardless of where we go in the country, most of those companies, will travel with us, and we've had those relationships, for years. They've done projects for us in Michigan and Massachusetts and Illinois and New York. Um, when we go to a different market, what we're really looking for is we need to find the other key trades, and Elevator is another national vendor. So there are a handful of national vendors that help us on the projects, and it's pretty normal to be working, in different regions. But to find those local vendors, it just really involves spending time in that market for a while and getting to know, because the next batch of uh, material and labor after that is really concrete and masonry and roofing. Uh, so, those are the trades that we need to find locally, and we uh, a lot of times through the relationships with the metal building companies and the other people in the storage industry and other projects in those markets, we end up finding putting together the team and of all the trades that have done self storage, because when it comes to mechanical and electrical and plumbing, you need to have those trades with self storage experience. We have had so many times to get an electrical contractor to bid it that has not done a lot of self storage, and they don't really know how to bid it. They will go high because they're really not sure what they're getting into. So, and again, those costs we know right where those costs should be. The metal building and the storage systems, a lot of that is based on steel pricing and the market for labor, but we have a real good handle on the masonry and the steel and the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire suppression. Uh, so we will find the trades to meet those budgets that we have from our historical cost data to make sure the customer is going to get the best value on that project.
So it seems to me, this relates. I mean, I've worked with everybody here on this call, but I mean, relationships are critical, right? Storage is such a business of relationships, and so when you need somebody in a pinch or something needs to get done, I mean, there's nothing more important than having someone that you know and trust that you've worked with, right? I mean, there's just nothing more important. And you guys, quite honestly, you're going to go work for people. You're going to have to go to bat for people that have been loyal to you, right? I mean, Steve, why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, you bring up loyalty in the industry in general. So obviously we work within multiple industries, but I would say from my experience, the self-storage is the closest knit group of people that I've definitely dealt with. It's been awesome because you have different trades that you talk to and bring you in and ask you questions, and vice versa. We bring in people that we work with. So having those relationships is crucial to the success of our business, and it just helps make things so much more fluid for us when completing a project. So I would definitely say the partnerships that we've built within self-storage are awesome, and they just continue to get better and better through networking and just people not even caring about doing whatever it takes to help you out, no matter if it comes something in benefit to them. So this industry has been phenomenal for that, and I'm really glad that I get to take it for Blink Signs because it's been great so far.
That's fantastic. Ian had to step away to go over to track one, so I'm going to finish up with you guys. Merrill, can you tell me a little bit about how Motili can save time and money on climate control spaces?
Yeah, absolutely. So depending on the depth of the relationship, as I said, we have a slew of services that match everything from a developer's need to an owner operator and to a renovator. But really what it comes down to is having a single point of contact for anything related to HVAC, whether it be design, whether it be installation, maintenance, repair, and then eventually replacement when it comes to the life cycle. The second way too is that we are manufacturer direct. So the pricing that we are able to secure for our end users is nationally based pricing. So it's manufacturer direct pricing. So that when you work with us, you will be getting the best pricing on the market for the equipment that you're installing in your space. And the same thing goes for our labor rates as well. We work diligently with our contractors to make sure that the rates are competitive in the space, that we're getting the highest, so that we can prevent callbacks after installation, right? Because those can be incredibly costly and time consuming, and on top of it, stressful for an end user once a building is turned over.
Yeah, that definitely can be very stressful. That's good to know that you guys are so diligent on how you're able to handle those. Brandon, can you tell me a little bit about what's most overlooked in a building project?
Yeah, I think, the biggest step overlooked in my experience has been developers who do not assemble the right team on the front end of a project. It's important to have your civil engineer, your architect, your building provider, your general contractor, your funding provider. You need to have all these teams members lined up and really ready to go to work with you on your project. And that's not even to mention your feasibility expert. Selecting a feasibility expert is often overlooked because of the developer thinks that the area or property is a perfect fit for self-storage. And in reality, they're making these decisions without knowing what the competition looks like, what the census data is telling you, the traffic patterns, and other important details that a feasibility study will show. So it's getting the team right at the front end of your project to make sure that you've got the right members of your team on your project to make it come out looking the way you want it to look.
Yeah, I think that's so critical. I appreciate that so much. One last question, and then we're going to turn it over to Alec for a poll. I personally have been a marketing manager for many years and for several different brands. And my question goes to Steve Weber from Blink Signs. With there being so many different sign codes, how do you know what the right company is to choose for your project?
Yeah, so with the varying sign codes, it's really good to have someone that's flexible and experienced in the industry in general. And you know, like I said earlier, we don't just work within self-storage, which I think is a benefit because we do a lot of different types of projects that aren't just necessarily tied to self-storage. It makes us learn different ways to mount signs, different types of ways to build signs, things like that. So having a company that's flexible and continuing to grow their knowledge base on what to do and types of ways to do your branding, both exterior and interiors, is crucial. And I think, you know, having that partner is really important.
Yeah, I agree with you. Just as a last wrap up on that, how often do you see that when companies are coming to you for the first time, they don't have a brand in place, and what do you say to them?
Yeah, so I would say, you know, at least 50% of the time, it's someone that's newer to the industry and wanted to take that on. I would just say, really make sure the branding that you are trying to build, not just for your business, ties to what would be done for signage. So we have some people that bring some intricate designs of their logo and things like that, and you really have to think, okay, how do I make this into sign form so that it obviously looks good and presents you the right way, but it's cost effective to you? Because sometimes we get that where it's, you know, it's either a very large name or the picture on it is pretty intense, so it could cost a lot more money. So you want something that's obviously visible, but it's also cost effective and efficient for putting on a building. So that's something you work with a sign company on, and we really, that's one thing I really pride on, is really communicating with these new branding opportunities and helping them get through that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you so much to all of you. Steve Weber with Blink Signs, Brandon Maurer with BETCO, Scott from I'm gonna mess it up.
Salzeider.
Thank you. I'm so sorry. And Meryl with Motili. I appreciate every single one of you guys for being here. Your panelists' knowledge, your expert knowledge is greatly appreciated. So thank y'all so much.